Great to see everyone here. We'll be talking about this, so evolving an EHR into the open ecosystem. And we'll start with this little statement here, or question, whether the EHR is dead. And that's something that we hear a lot, and the talk on the market is, the EHR is dead. And if you look at really good article from Forbes, I don't know if you've read it. The EHR is dead, long live the EHR platform. And so this is a little bit what we want to talk about here today. Is the EHR dead? And if so, what happens to an EHR company like Cambio? Where are we heading? And is there a path for evolving an EHR or the EHRs into something new or something more open? We'll start with introducing ourselves. So my name is Martin. I've been with Cambio for almost 100 years, or 18 years. My background is in informatics, so I'm passionate about these type of questions, health data and openness and standardization. Now I'm the product manager for Cambio Platform, which is Cambio's openEHR-based health data platform offering.
Yeah, my name is Fernando. I haven't been that long for, like Martin, in the Cambio or in the health sector. I've been a couple years in the health sector, but I've been 20 years in the IT industry in different sectors like travel, telecom, airlines. So I've been a lot, and I know what is the standards and how can they enable innovation. My focus at Cambio is to make the data accessible so we can help our customers to get from storing data to learn from it. And then I'm very excited here to share with Martin how we're doing that.
And for those who don't know Cambio, Cambio is a Swedish company. Our core business is and has always been EHR systems, electronic healthcare record systems. And just by accident, coming from Sweden, we've always focused on regional care. So in Sweden, the healthcare is organized. We have both primary care and the secondary care hospitals within the same governing organization. So we're used to providing EHR systems and longitudinal records across those type of care boundaries. But we've also been, for quite some time, been a contributor and an industry partner to openEHR. As one of the few EHR vendors that is actually pushing that type of strategy. And we've been a contributor to the specifications, especially in the area of clinical decision support. Perhaps you know Rong Chen, who's, I don't see him here now, but he's somewhere around here. So we are very passionate about openness and openEHR, as we are with our EHR. And in Sweden, we provide our EHR to, I think it's 19 out of 21 regions that are either using or is starting to use our Cambio Cosmic EHR. And the last year, we've implemented it in 10 new regions, including Åland, who just went live. The Åland Islands just went live here the other week. We had another go live just earlier this week as well in Dalarna in Sweden. But in parallel to our EHR business, Cambio is also invested in a platform business. We are representing that. That is what we call Cambio Platform. It's an openEHR platform offering. And that is for Cambio strategic investment to also evolve our EHR. So I think everyone here will agree on the vision, or at least some version of the vision. We want to have an open ecosystem where there's a market of different applications, different vendors that can contribute. We want care providers, hospitals, clinicians to have access to their data, so we can use both for primary use and secondary use, research and so on. We want to reduce vendor lock-in, all these type of negative sort of things that we have in the situation today. So I think we agree on that. But what I don't think we agree, or at least there is no sort of clear path to how to get there. I think that's the interesting topic. How do you get to that vision? And So there's sort of two options, simplifying things a bit. You have the EHRs, the big, bad, evil, monolithic EHRs. And then you have the open platforms that promise open data and innovation and all that. And how do you sort of reconcile this? And how do you move within this space to the vision? So one question we get often is this type of new open ecosystem, this openness, openEHR and open APIs, is that a threat to Cambio as an EHR vendor? And I guess to some extent it is. We don't believe that a traditional EHR vendor, a traditional EHR system, the thing we will call a big monolithic EHR, they will probably not be around forever. So the market wants something else. And whether that change happens in a year or 5 years or 10 years or whenever, eventually the market will not want to buy those type of things. So it is a threat to Cambio to open up for competition, for example. But the key thing here is that we see this as an opportunity. So we see general market requirements that we can use to evolve our EHR. So when we look at procurements, for example, and this has been a trend the last couple of years, for every big EHR procurement, there's an increase of requirements around openness. Early on, it was just some type of just open APIs. And then perhaps the next one we want open standard APIs, or FHIR APIs. And now we can start to see openEHR requirements in EHR procurements, which is great. So if there's, that's a key message from us as a vendor, that if you are a care provider, working for a hospital and so on, very important to start changing the way you procure and buy things, because that will create a market incentive for vendors like us and others to build EHR openEHR type applications. So we see it as an opportunity to provide more openness in our EHR. We also see it as an opportunity to expand to new markets. openEHR is an international standard, so it makes it easier for us to provide our offerings to new markets. We also get specific requirements from our customers, and they want us to move in this direction. And this is actually a bit of a learning that we've done now since, we started working with our openEHR platform offering maybe 5 years ago. And we from the platform team and me as the platform product manager, we're going around trying to sell this thing and talking about it. And when we do so, we start with our existing customers, our existing regional customers in Sweden. And they don't really want to talk about platforms. They want to talk about extending their EHR. So one challenge we have, it's like a communication challenge, that we want our customers to express. They just want, they want capabilities extended in their EHR, but they can start talking about, for example, when we do new EHR development, new EHR capabilities, that should also be available through an openEHR API. So the data is available in an openEHR API, so they can start using that. So if we can start together with our customers, expressing requirements that way, that will sort of move the platform aspects into the EHR much quicker. This type of openness is also sort of there are internal incentives and drivers for Cambio to move in this direction as an EHR vendor. We started off with just having one system, one product, our EHR. But then over the years, we've added multiple products to our portfolio, both through acquisitions, so bought other companies, we have new products from them, and we've built our own other products. But what happens then is we have sort of the same problem that healthcare providers and hospitals have. We have multiple systems with their data in silos, and that's not efficient for us as a company. So we need a common platform to consolidate around. So we store the data in one way in our portfolio. We don't implement the same capabilities in our different applications. So we also see openness, sort of an open platform, as a baseline for evolving our whole portfolio in a more efficient way. So, well, this sort of path here, right? So if you want to move towards openness, whether you are a care provider of some sort or you're a vendor, how do you do that? Do you go and buy a platform? Do you try to evolve your EHR? And I think where we are now, I think the experience now on the market, we've tried, not only Cambio, the market has tried promoting and selling open-air platforms for a while, and there is now a good set of vendors and products on the market. But I think what we can see now is that there is a challenge with realizing the value from these platforms. Everyone sees the potential, but how do you realize the values? And that requires applications. I think it was something that Amanda from Basel mentioned yesterday in her talk, that now you need the user interface. And that is true, because with the clinicians will not be using an open-air API. They need applications to work from. And there is not a big market of open-air applications today. So Cambio strategy is to, when we evolve our EHR, we evolve that into an open-air architecture so that we, at the same time, we can sort of kill two birds with one stone. We can evolve our EHR and at the same time start producing open-air compliant applications that we can provide in a modular way. And this is sort of, we see this as the at least for us, the best route or the fastest route to go into that vision. And eventually, perhaps an EHR or EHR type systems and platforms are just two sides of the same coin, because you will not want to buy in the future an EHR that does not have the open capabilities, does not have open APIs for integrating other products, does not have a standardized information model with access to that data. So those are sort of platform capabilities exposed and packaged in an EHR. Or you just flip it around. You buy a platform because you like the platform thinking and have a platform strategy, but you don't only want the platform. You want to be able to also have access to applications that can run on that platform. So it's more of a packaging question. Where are we on time? Okay. Yeah, so that's at least what we see. And this is not sort of all these things are, it's a high level. It's not an either or all the time, but if we take gradual steps, this is, I think, where we will end up. And that doesn't mean it has to be one big EHR. It can be, an EHR type system. I mean, care providers have many EHR systems. But you want to have both the clinician-facing application and the open capabilities from a platform. So how are we doing this in practice then? Well, conceptually, this is how our portfolio looks. We have the big EHR, and then we have a set of applications, traditional applications, data in silos, like everyone else. So our first step is then to establish a health data platform, because we know we need to evolve this thing over here, and that's why me and Fernando are here. We're providing that. And there's Cambio has a history of building platforms. Our EHR was built on a standardized open platform, but we didn't keep them separated, right? So we started coupling our applications in the EHR with the platform. So we lost the platform capabilities in the EHR by doing that. So that's a lesson that we've learned in our EHR journey. That is why we now have this as a separate product offering, and we productize the APIs and tools in the platform. And then we have a separate product offering for the applications in the EHR to ensure that we keep the separation between the platform and our applications on top. And this is super critical, because we don't want these things to evolve too tightly together. I think it was Nils from Vita Group that said yesterday that the open platform, you shouldn't be building your own applications, and we agree with that. At least we in the platform team should not build applications, and the application teams should not build platform features, but they will just tailor them for their needs. So this needs to be separated. And then, of course, we want other vendors and in-house developed applications to also be able to be plugged into the platform. And we're a big fan of the dog fooding concept. I'm not sure you're aware of that. Eat your own dog food. So we want the APIs that we expose to our own applications are the same ones we enable to the ecosystem. So we don't have the strategy is not to have a secret set of APIs that we use for our own applications. We want to provide the same ones to external parties. And then if you dig one step down into the platform aspects, of course there is a standardized API layer. That's where we have an openEHR API and various Fire APIs and so on, and various data sources that we provide, but we also want to be able to plug in other systems, because hospitals, they will have lots of different systems which they like and want to keep, but they want to be able to give a consolidated view of that data for clinicians. So we want to be able to also connect those under a unified API layer. On time.
Yeah, so Martin explained strategy, and what I want to do now is to show you how do we do that in practice. So the principles that we use, high level, and I hope that some of you, maybe you have an EHR as well, you get some inspiration or you learn from our mistakes, or if you are someone that wants to get Cambio in the future, then you get reassured with the principles that we are using. And the first one is we decide to be openEHR native. And if you see the picture to the left, native means the compositions on JSON standard, we just put in database like that. And we have here a lot of other providers that are not doing that because of reasons, and we respect that. But we decide that it was simplicity to start. So for us, sharing the specs is easier, using AQL is easier, just putting the standard at the beginning is just easier than having a lot of boxes to translate data to our legacy system. It just, for us, it was easy to start. But then it comes as well the question of, how are you going to migrate your current users? Is that data going to stay there aside? Are you going to use boxes? And what we decide is, and Amanda talked as well in the hospital, we need to start somewhere. And we need to be opportunistic with the different kind of customers that we have. If there is an opportunity, we use it. If there is a little project that we can see the opportunity to go there, we use it. And then we think there will be a momentum where there will be a reason why to migrate the whole customers. But right now, what we decided to start small and start implementing rather than doing a lot of complexity around to meet all the other systems that exist right now. Now, the other principle that I want to talk is about compliance and security. So this is something that the simplicity helps us in compliance. So if you see here in the second layer, compliance, we're talking about GDPR. In Sweden, it's called PDL. And we are very happy to use AQL and I use openEHR standard. With all the richness and the context, it's relatively easy to put all the rules and to put all the stops and do all the filterings, because there is the information is there, the care provider, the care unit. So when you have to know who can use your information or not, it's very easy to just do a query. I've been working as well in other e-health systems. And when you need to apply these to different tables and the data is all spread, the model is so complicated, it takes so much time just to understand and to implement that when we went here and it went so fast to implement that, we just really said, thanks AQL, thanks to a standard. So that was one of the things of the simplicity. Now talking about security, and we use the principle of zero trust. And here you see a little bit of keys everywhere. But if I want to put an analogy, it's just think that you live in an apartment and you have one key to enter to the building. You have another key to go to your apartment. But usually when you go home, you don't have a key to go to your room. And you don't have a key to go to the kids' room. But here we decide that once we are in the system, in between services or in between our rooms, we are going to have specific security and tokens. Why is that? It's a little bit, you think if you have the safe, and in the safe you have all your jewels, you have a code there, and you're not going to leave it exposed. So if a robbery goes inside, he's not able to take that part. He might take the TV, okay, take the TV, but don't take my jewels. And don't go to the kids' room, because that is something that I want to be safe. So if something gets compromised in the first service, then inside doesn't get compromised. And that's something that is difficult to apply sometimes, and it takes some performance, but we commit to that. The same in Zero Trust, you limit the access. So I don't have to give the code on my safe to my son, because he has a need to go there. The same is here. If you're a customer and you need some services, but you don't need all, you don't have the access to the other ones. You just go and access what you need. The third principle that I'm going to talk about is scalable and efficient. And we know that the health system needs availability. And we know now with pandemics, that sometimes it goes very high, the users rate. So we need to have a way to scale, to get more machines, to get more resources, to get more disks. And we need to design the system to scale up vertically or redundant. So have multiple nodes, so you can load balance. But something that often, when you start, don't think about is, what about the small customers? So if you have municipalities, they don't have the money to pay for all those resources. It costs a lot to have memory, CPUs, and resources. And if you're a small hospital or someone, how can you do that? Or if you are a big customer, but you have test system, you have one test system, one training system, and you don't want to pay for the whole thing. How do you do? And then we use the concept of multi-tenancy. So imagine again that you're in your building, and you have an apartment, and there you share the electricity and the water. But what comes with sharing the electricity and the water? Yeah, you don't have to pay for your own heating in each house. But if you, for instance, going to take a shower, and then suddenly your neighbors have used the whole hot water, and you shower with cold water, you're not going to be happy. So we need to put in place as well measures to how to control the use and abuse, and we need to put measures as well how to make it secure. So just to summarize, and how those are the main principles that we have. We are native. We have compliance and security by default, and we think about being scalable and efficient. And now Martin is going to show some examples as well on how we do that.
Before going into these things, I think the CDR is a good example of our learnings as an EHR vendor. In our initial EHR database, we know what scales and what doesn't scale. We've had issues with scalability for certain type of queries, for example, more populational type queries. So those are experiences we've had taken into the architecture of the CDR. So there were some discussions yesterday about, should you use AQL or not for populational type queries, and we don't see a reason why not. And if you can't, that's more of a limitation in the architecture and the implementation of the CDR than in anything else. So we have designed our CDR to be able to tailor for those type of queries as well, so you can do that in the EHR context. Okay, so these are two examples of how we are working with evolving our platform area into the EHR area together. So next year we will be able to use our low-code, no-code capabilities, the forms and so on, integrated into the EHR client. So that solves a big problem for our customers, because if you just have a form, where are you going to run it, right? And the users want to use less rather than more applications. And so this is where we can evolve, open innovation capabilities into the EHR. And another example is we're currently evolving the care planning functionality in the EHR, but while doing so, the common capabilities that we want to expose to the ecosystem and our portfolio as a whole, they're developed as platform services with standard APIs. So our own EHR functionality and our inhabitant patient functionality will be consuming platform services for managing care plans. Okay, some key points to take home, and perhaps a little bit provocative, but let me explain here. So we believe that the best way and the quickest way to evolve to where the vision that we all want is through evolving an EHR. You don't always have an EHR with a vendor that has that type of strategy. You need to have a credible strategy as a vendor to move towards openEHR. But if you have that, you can both support your clinical business that needs all the capabilities in the EHR on a day-to-day basis while you are evolving through to openness. If you buy a platform, I think that's a good strategic move as well, but it's not the strategic move in the short term to replace an EHR. It will take many years before we've built the market has built up applications that can replace an EHR in the type of open ecosystem that we all want. So if you can, try to both have a platform strategy and evolve and push your EHR vendor in that direction. And eventually, I think these two paths, the platform path and the EHR path, they will converge in some way, that you will not have closed systems any longer because no one wants them. And no one wants platforms without applications that provide value. So these things will sometimes converge together. They're different paths today, but we think they will converge. And last thing, it is super critical that we, the vendors, get help with a market pull for more openness. So we want to see more explicit requirements in tenders, procurements about openEHR capabilities. That makes it easier for us also internally to build our business case to push this evolution. Good. That was, I think, it. And open to questions. I don't know how much time we have, but...
I think you're okay for a couple of questions.
Yep. Go ahead, Andy. Huh?
First one. Hang on.
So I actually got two questions. But the first question is, what about the PaaS stuff, the non-clinical functionality that's in Cosmic?
Yeah.
What are your plans for that?
So first of all, and this is a good question. We had our Cambio's yearly customer conference earlier this week, and I spent 2 hours talking to a clinician that works at one of the regions. She's a big openEHR fan, but we spent time. She only wanted to talk to me about not openEHR stuff, but PaaS stuff, right? Patient flows, admissions, handovers, all these things. And this is sort of typical EHR functionality that doesn't have a perfect fit in an openEHR architecture. So that's one example of why it is not that easy to just buy an openEHR platform and then build a big ecosystem. There are many other capabilities that we need as well. So our strategy for those things is to look at each capability in the EHR and say, where does this belong? Does this information belong in a standardized health record? Well, then we will build it towards the CDR. If it doesn't belong there, then we'll build a standalone service with a Fire API perhaps and its own persistence. And how we do that is also takes time to rebuild these type of capabilities inside the EHR. So normally, what we will do initially is put a standard API on top. So when we evolve the EHR application, it's evolved towards a standard API, and then we gradually evolve the backend.
Thank you. That makes sense. Am I allowed another question? So this is a bit of a cheeky one, but in the interest of growing an open ecosystem, and you've developed your own CDR and capabilities and knowledge of migrating from an EHR, do you ever see the possibility of Cambio working with possibly a competitive EHR vendor to help them move on to your CDR as part of their architecture?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not. So also going back to why this is not only a threat to Cambio, it's a business opportunity. So when we open up, we get much more products we can sell to open up to new customer segments, right? So we can, instead of selling an EHR to a care provider, we can sell platform capabilities to other vendors and so on. So there's new partnerships, new business opportunities for us as a company by taking this route.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay, and we have another question over here.
Hi, Bernhard here. Thanks for the interesting presentation. You've been talking about security and compliance, and what I did miss here is MDR. Is that something you're concerned about? Can you expand on that?
I don't know if we're concerned about it, but it's a question, and it's a complex question. So we have, for example, spent a bit of time recently to look at, the low-code, no-code example. So what is the thing that, are you creating a medical device when you are using low-code, no-code tools? And our current assessment, and that could change, because these things are not always clear, but a tool set is not a clinical device. A tool set is not used for creating, it doesn't have a clinical use case, the tool itself. So then the question is, what is the thing that gets created and then runs in the runtime environment, for example, inside an EHR? So the current assessment from us, for example, is our EHR is CE marked and is a class 2, whatever, I don't remember. So we can use that classification and certification to, as long as the EHR is MDR compliant, we can use the low-code, no-code capabilities in the EHR without having to certify the tool set itself. It becomes different if we want to promote this as a standalone thing, or if the customers want to build their low-code, no-code apps and share them with other hospitals. So it's an area we're looking into a lot and thinking a lot about, and there needs to be, I think, a balance between, between both ensuring quality, but also providing value to healthcare. Really. So it's a bit of a balance, and what strategies you have. You need to have a credible strategy and communicate clearly how you have reason as a vendor.
Yeah, I agree. There should be a balance, but I can share you that the more you move towards being an EHR, the more you're prone to being a device.
Yep.
And the very moment you put capabilities in the hand of your end users doing low-code things, there's a very easy chance they build things that are a medical device. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I can one comparison is that in the low-code, no-code capabilities that we have, the openEHR ones, they're sort of external, decoupled from the EHR. But inside the EHR, there are still, you can still basically do the same type of things, but it's coupled with the EHR. You can create forms, you can configure decision support rules, and we don't have to do a new, certification every time you configure the EHR. Right? It's configured, it's certified once, and I think you can also argue that if you extend this to the EHR, it's just another type of configuration of the EHR. But again, it becomes different if you provide a standalone, and then those low-code, no-code apps have a life outside of the EHR.
Okay, well, I think that's probably a good point to say. Thank you very much, Martin and Fernando. And